73 of the Fitness Business Growth Podcast with Shane Da Costa, two-time guest. How are you, mate?
Very good, mate. Thanks for inviting me back. Excited to be here with you again.
No need for an introduction. 8-figure entrepreneur, sales expert. We're going deep, tactical, how to build a successful scales team. Mate, there's so much hot air and fluff online. I love data. I love just let's get deep as possible on this topic.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mate, the reason I brought you back, you were on a podcast recently with Chris Cochran, and you said something that really, really stood out to me. Cool. Can you explain to the audience what happens when someone interviews for a sales job with you? I thought it was magical.
Oh, when they interview with a sales job with me. I mean, look, it's a forever evolving process because I guess with this experience, you identify the gaps, right? I mean, fundamentally, when you're interviewing in sales, I mean, what you're trying to establish is whether or not this person's going to be an ultra high performer. Right. So what you're trying to get and cut through is all the noise. And all the noise, I mean, people are going to tell you what they want you to know. They're going to tell you all the right things. When we're trying to assess whether or not that is true, that becomes the complex issue, right? And so one of the things I guess that I have identified very quickly is you want people to start to take action. And in other words, to make the first sale. What do you think the first sale is?
The first sale is selling themselves onto you on why Absolutely. I deserve this job.
Absolutely. So, when they've applied for the role, and often if we put out, whether it's a seek out or whether we've gone through a specific sales community, something that, people are going through to learn sales or master their sales. One of the first tasks, aside from the obvious, right? The obvious and the status quo is going to be send me a CV, and address a cover letter to me explaining, a little bit about your background. That's the status quo. That's the easy stuff. And to be honest, sometimes I don't even bother with that too much anymore, particularly when it comes to sales. So what I ask them to do is to film a video, and I give them very specific instructions around what I want them to share with me within 3 minutes. They're not allowed to go over 3 minutes. And why a video? Well, because it's hard to bullshit.
Absolutely. That's why I love podcasts, mate. You can't talk shit for an hour.
Well, you got to think about this, right? If they can't sell me on the fact that they're going to be an ultra high performer, how are they actually going to do their job? And so much of what we do these days is on Zoom. It's in this virtual space. I mean, it's moving, right? Once upon a time, the majority of high ticket sales or remote sales was done over a phone. I would imagine for the most part, most offers, if they're evolving, is going to be done over Zoom.
So just to confirm, you went from phone calls to a Zoom call now?
Absolutely. We do 90% of our calls over Zoom, and the exception to the rule is purely if someone is that much of a tech retard that they can't do it, right? So we want to be able to look people in the eye. And so when they interview for the role, if they can't present on camera in such a way that just oozes confidence and finesse, and they have no personality, well, they don't even get to the next stage, right? So let's assume they do that and they do a really good job at it. And I've had some absolute dog shit like videos sent to me. I'll give you a little example. And this is a little, I suppose, piece of advice for someone. If you were to do this,
I interviewed you on today, mate, because you're giving me advice. I'm trying to scale a sales team, so give me advice.
Here's a little piece of advice, right? So if your agent starts the video by saying something like this: "Hi, I'm just doing a video to answer the 3 questions that you asked me to do." Like, dude.
Yeah, be a bit creative, mate.
For real? Right. Now, I've had some absolute crackers where you can see that this individual is highly trained, has thought about their video, has put a lot of, besides thought, strategy into what they're going to open up with.
Well, they need to identify that they're actually in a sales process.
So immediately, yeah, absolutely. So immediately, like the 1%ers have a pattern interrupt. And they ask me a question on a video, and they'll do something to the effect of this: "Now, Shane, you're probably wondering whether or not I'm the right candidate for you." Now, that got me thinking. Most often, the hardest thing when you're trying to interview people for a sales role is trying to determine whether or not the person interviewing is going to be an ultra high performer. And that's quite difficult, right? And they start with a pattern interrupt, and they lead by asking questions. Now, when someone does that, you know that they know how to sell, because he who asks questions controls the sale.
100%.
Absolutely. So if they can deliver something, at that level and get my attention, then I know, okay, well, then I have someone that's worth spending a bit of time with. So I'll reply to that person, of course, and I'll get them to do a couple more things. I get them to do a disc assessment. Not that there's a lot of that I take away from that.
Excuse me, mate, jumping in there. What is a DISC assessment?
A disc.
Disc assessment.
Disc assessment. Sorry, did I say dick assessment?
That big, mate. Pretty confident.
Oh, shit. No, don't do that. Not interested in that. And so what we do is we do a disc assessment, and that assessment effectively just gives me a little bit of information about obviously their character and how they behave, how they think, that kind of stuff. But the main thing then is the next steps, right? And so once I get them on a Zoom, as you do, I mean, you're going to have your questions that you ask. I'm going to have mine that I ask. But what I'm still trying to identify is, will this person excel? Now, one of the main key things we're trying to identify, of course, in the interview is their ability, which is really tough. So I'll typically in advance before the call also ask them for a recorder or an actual live sales call, because ultra high performers usually have already been working in the industry. They've already been on multiple offers, and they'll have a library of calls that they are happy to share with you. And then, of course, they're going to share the better calls. It doesn't matter.
Well, I'll share my story, mate, with AP. How I got the job was I was in systems by design.
And he's the best, by the way. Like, if there's anyone that you're going to ask about this kind of stuff, like
so he interviewed, he offered the job in a systems by design Slack channel, and I sent him 4 call recordings. And I said, mate, these are 4 sales fails. I'd love to hear your feedback. And the response was, fuck, mate, most people just send me successful sales. I like your confidence. And had a phone call and then got the job.
Yeah, that's it. And so with the disc assessment, with a pre done call that we can review, I mean, I listen to the call and I kind of listen to the intro. I'm looking for that intelligence. Do they understand the structure of a sales call? Are they asking intelligent questions? So I'm trying to assess their skill. As we get on the call and the interview, we start to interview them, I'm assessing their personality. Because you can't polish a turd, right? I don't care how good someone is. If they're a dick, then they're a dick and they won't last, right?
Yeah.
And so
I guess where I struggle, mate, is I always hire on character over skill. And it's worked out thus far, but like I just... You cannot take a 1 to a 10, but you can take a 7 to probably a 9. And
this is true.
Do you want a team full of 9s that are respectful, that act the right way, that don't steal each other's sales? Or do you want that 10 out of 10 killer?
Well, that's interesting, right? I mean, I heard a really interesting comment recently by Matt Ryder, who said something to the effect of, if you need a high-performing sales team for your offer to work, well, then you're doomed to fail. And I couldn't agree more, right? I mean, the reality is ultra high performers are far and few in between. That's the reality, right? And if they are an ultra high performer, well, they're probably already in their own offer, running their own business, let's be honest, or they're already in an offer, earning $500,000 a year in BizOp or something like that, and they're untouchable, right? So I'm talking extreme high performers, okay? So we're trying to assess skill before. The initial conversation, I'm trying to assess character. I want to understand a little bit about them personally, because as I mentioned, it's really difficult to work with people that are difficult. Can
you share a story, mate, of a talented sales rep that was difficult and how that ended up?
Well, I did have an agent once come in. I suppose there's been many, but one that I can think of. This guy came in and he swept the floor in the first week. There was a day that he did 12 back-to-back sales, right? I'm just talking where I was like, holy shit, this guy is legit. Now, because obviously it's in the first couple of days, he'd done the onboarding, he'd been through all the videos, and we have a very extensive library of onboarding material to show you exactly how to do the job, right? So nothing is left to chance, believe me, right? That said, I talked about skill, and then I'm talking about capacity now. Capacity is your ability to learn something, be coached on something, and then implement that thing. Right. So he came in, he did 12 sales in a day. You're probably going to think, oh my God, this guy's good, keep him on the team. So I went and listened to some of the calls and they were dog shit. Why does that matter? Why does that matter? one of your listeners is probably thinking like, I wouldn't give a shit if the guy's making me money. Well, you should give a shit, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you cut corners and you can't follow the yellow brick road, well, guess what's going to happen down the road? There's going to be problems.
And when the call sounded like dog shit, was it skipping parts of the script? Was it being rude? Was it being overly pushy at the end? Like, what was the dog shit element?
Yeah, just a complete lack of respect for the science, a complete lack of respect for the fact that the science is important, because the science allows the prospect to feel heard, validated, and nurtured through the process. He wasn't overly pushy or anything like that. In fact, he was a nice enough person, but just a complete lack of respect for the science, despite that he had been told how to do things, and there was nothing left to chance. There was no attempt at all to implement any of the system that was in place.
So he's gone through a really good onboarding process. You've left nothing to chance, super thorough, and he's done the exact opposite thing from day one, which is a total lack of respect.
Exact opposite. And so obviously that's meant that we had to have a conversation, which, is fairly easy to do, but just a lack of willingness to adapt and to learn. So what that assesses then is capacity. So if you coach someone on something, despite that their skill may be at a certain level, but if you coach someone on something and they have the ability to learn and internalize and then implement that thing, well, then guess what? You have huge capacity, and that person can improve, right? Like you talked about taking a 7 from a 9 or a 5 to a 7 or something like that.
Yeah. One of my best sales reps, mate, I'll share this story. I was training at Anytime Fitness. He was a PT on the floor. He approached me, nicest guy I ever met. Hey, mate, how are you? How's you going? I'm thinking about going into online fitness. I thought, don't say it, Jayme. Don't say it. Don't say what you want to say here. And then I obviously told him what I kind of did for work, and we formed this great friendship. And he went from zero sales ability and is now our number 2 closer for months and months and months.
How good.
And the number 1 trait he has is, Dylan, can you please do this? No problems at all, mate. Can you please do this? No problems at all. And he's just grown in leaps and bounds, mate. Probably like,
isn't that amazing?
My biggest success story in terms of taking someone from like no experience to a killer.
Isn't that amazing? That goes to the character, right? So Carol Dweck in her book Mindset, teaches on this subject very deeply. She talks about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So when someone has a growth mindset like that, I mean, they're open to learning, they're open to change, they love the challenge, they're coachable. You can give them feedback and they take it with open arms, and they're under no illusion that they know it all. For example, they're in complete control of their destiny because they have that growth mindset, which sounds like what Dylan has. And that really is, when you truly think about it, I mean, sales isn't something that any of us are born with. I mean, some people are fucking delusional thinking that, they're natural born killers. That's one of the things that I actually ask, if people start telling me that, they just learned sales, they're just naturally good at sales. And I'm like, well, you're probably not, because none of us are. But when you have a guy like Dylan, who skill is low, but the capacity is so high because of their attitude, you have a winner. 100%.
Mate, like I would say technically his ability when I first met him was 0. And I've said this to his face. Like, we have tough conversations weekly. He sends through the most core recordings. I can be the most critical on his calls. He's like, fuck, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to get better. I'm going to try that.
So good. You have a winner there, right? So we talk about, sort of assessing the ability at the start. We look at character and align values and ensure that aligns. And then we start to assess, obviously, capacity, right? Part of the character component, one of the things that I think you wanted to know a little bit about was, okay, well, what are the next steps? An object in motion stays in motion, right? And desire is one of the things I'm trying to test. So when people keep taking action, there's strong desire, they're in motion, they're learning. So what I realized was, well, I had people come in to the sales team and we onboard them and whatnot, and inevitably we run into problems. You know what those problems are? Core values. Core values. Core values that didn't align, right? And hence, case in point with this guy who came in, and our core values were not aligned because we hadn't identified our sales philosophy.
It's interesting. I used to think core values were stupid, and now I think they're important, because, like, as opposed to saying you are doing X, Y, Z wrong, you are acting against the core value.
100%. No, I shared on this subject. I won't say taught, but I shared on this subject recently in Cancun at Russell Brunson's mastermind. We had this thing called an aftermind. An aftermind is where, the day's said and done, but the cream of the crop, the 1%, the creme de la creme get together and they just start sharing stuff to help people for free, right? We had a room of about 70 people, and within the space of 3 minutes, I decided on what I was going to share and teach, and I got up and talked about this very very subject. And actually, I just lost my chain of thought. So what were we talking about? We were talking about the
it was the interviewing process. They've gone from you've met them, now desire creates desire. What is the next
sales
step?
Philosophy. Okay. So sales philosophy, right? So our core values weren't aligned, and the reason is because we hadn't aligned our philosophies, right? So our philosophy now is very simple, but everyone knows and understands it. And it is this: to engage with a prospect to determine whether or not there's a sale to be made. Now, when you understand what your sales philosophy is, then you can create training around that. You can drill it. You can build a system around it. And because I hadn't established that from the beginning, our core values went aligned. Hence why he was selling and telling. Does that make sense?
100%.
Jane would jump on the phone and this guy would shoot straight into qualifying for price and just doing the most basic shit wrong. Because I had made a mistake in not aligning values. So what I've realized over time is, okay, so we need to align values. They need to understand the core philosophy of our sales approach. And the best way to do that is to keep them in motion, to test their willingness to learn and adapt, and give them a task.
Yeah. It's my favorite thing I've heard in a podcast, mate. Truthfully, I stole it.
Man. And I'm honored that you have. So, so what I do now is I just say, well, once we've gone through the initial interview, I've got the core stuff that I need. I've identified that this person has, the experience, their skill is appropriate. I've listened to their call. They've done their DISC assessment. I've evaluated their character. Now I'm going to evaluate their desire.
They're going to want it.
Oh, yeah. So now I just say to them, okay, so the next steps are you've got 7 days. You've got 7 days to download this particular book. It's called Sales EQ. I don't care what book you choose to do. You probably have a better book, right? And I'd love to hear it. But I've read and I've read and I've read, and I know what I want to establish as the foundation to my team, right? I've got my own training, but I'm not conceited enough to think that I've got all the answers. So I give them a very specific task. This book, go and download it. You've got 7 days. And what I want is a Google Doc, chapter by chapter, highly detailed notes on what you've learned. Why? Align our values, show me desire, and it gives you a very clear understanding of what we're about. Because it goes to the heart of our sales approach that relies upon emotional intelligence, your ability to connect with another human and have situational awareness and understand what I feel is a very important concept in sales it's called dual process. And when they understand those things, then we're aligned. So it actually forms part of the onboarding process.
100%. So since implementing that step, have you been surprised that people are, whoa, like you're making me work for free. I'm not doing this. This is bullshit. Have you had pushback or resistance? And have you had success stories?
No, I haven't. But the answer would be very quickly, thank you for your time. See you later.
So regardless of skill, regardless of character, they are against your values. Goodbye.
Not interested. See you later. Now, here's an important thing. So Sales EQ was written, authored by a guy called Jeb Blunt. There's another book that I would recommend that you also read, which is called Fanatical Prospecting. Now, as business owners, we're also obsessed about leads, right? Leads. Fanatical prospecting goes to the heart of that. But guess what? It also goes to the heart of fanatical prospecting for staff. Now, one of the biggest issues is the law of neediness. When we need leads for sales and when we need leads for staff. So when you need a staff member, if you've been sleeping through the process of running your business and you wait to advertise until you need someone, you're going to accept people that don't quite meet your standards
Yeah.
based on neediness, right?
And they ruin the culture. One bad egg, mate.
101. So I've learned to keep my pipeline full. I never now stop interviewing for any part of my business. I've made that mistake time and time again. Too often I've learned the lesson. I always keep the pipeline full, and it's so important because not only do I need my pipeline full, so I'm always meeting people, but it allows me to manage with confidence. So when you're managing a sales team and there's 10 or 13 people, not all of those are going to be performing.
Yeah.
And in the past, I've been guilty, mate, hand or heart, I've been the first person to be guilty of not applying consequence to a lack of performance.
Yeah. So you needed availability in the calendar. You didn't have your pipeline full, and you accepted
substandard people. And I've made more mistakes than you could care to imagine. And I wouldn't, by any stretch of the imagination, say that I'm great at interviewing, that I'm great at assessing and X, Y, and Z. But I'm willing to keep learning and refining and to make mistakes. And I've learned enough that I've realized that the laws in fanatical prospecting, the audiobook of the book, apply in recruitment. You have to have your pipeline full and keep refining that process of qualifying and identifying talent. So it's about not needing people so that when you identify talent, you've got people in your pipeline. And then when you've got your current team that are underperforming, you can effectively manage them out with confidence because you know you've got someone else to come in.
Yeah, that's so interesting, right? Because like the absolute worst thing would be you have a heater, calendars are full, and you're just burning leads on some past staff because you haven't got that next person.
Because you haven't got that next person. So
and then they're costing you money, and you're on eggshells. It's amazing.
Absolutely, and it happens time and time again. And business owners like us make that mistake until we realize that one of our jobs, in fact, is recruitment. One of our jobs is to keep the pipeline full.
I've always been a marketer and salesperson, and now I'm learning how to manage and lead.
Pipeline.
And it has been a huge lesson for me in regards to just managing. We've got 18 people now, and like their names, their phone numbers, their emails, the cat's names, the dog's names. I have to genuinely have an interest in their life, and it's really it's been a really interesting 12 months for me, mate, because I was always just marketing because I love leads. So well. I love leads and sales.
Mate, you have done so well. And I truly applaud what you've done. Phenomenal.
Oh, thank you, mate. I learned from you guys, man. Seriously, I always give credit where credit's due.
We all learn from each other. That's the beautiful thing.
So, mate, you've refined your sales process. You've taken people through the interview process. Have you seen a drastic improvement in booking to sale, in cash collected, in revenue, but more important, team culture?
Attitude.
Okay. And when someone comes in, they've gone through the book review, they've sent it through to you. Have you been impressed? Have you been unimpressed? Or is it more just the effort?
More often impressed than not impressed, because obviously the clearer you are with the expectations, the more, the better chance they have at also doing the task. I can only recall on one occasion where I was underwhelmed, where I thought, okay, this is not what I've asked for. However, for the most part, then it's been really good, and I have seen that have a direct impact then on culture, on their ability to integrate into the team, and it sets the expectation. The reality is, readers are leaders. If someone isn't willing to go through the work in 7 days and complete an audio book, then they're not the sort of person I want in my environment. Readers are leaders, and in sales, ultra high performers need to lead the prospect to a decision. That takes character. It takes a certain type of posture. And so I want to develop the culture in my team that reading, studying is a given. I've 100%. Had periods in time in my team where I'm so motivated and inspired by my own team.
Yeah.
Where they're sending me screenshots, takeaways, learnings, completely detailed breakdowns of different books on their own accord without me
so good
having to prompt that, purely because that's the expectation that I created. And, the fish rots from the head. Agree?
100%.
The fish rots from the head. So if your team, for example, aren't doing something that you want them to do, well, it's probably because you're not doing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like no one on my team could accuse me that they work harder than me. No one could accuse me that they like sales more than me or review more calls than me. It is amazing. If I'm in Slack at 5 a.m. doing call recordings, you better be fucking sending me those calls.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So fish rots from the head. So if you start by leading by example, then it allows them the room to grow into that. And that's been one of my main focuses, making sure that I also have that integrity and do what I ask them to do. Right?
I think salespeople drastically underestimate the opportunity they have to make money without risk outside of their time. And I think where I had such great perspective of working with AP and AG is I have been a gym owner. I was up at 4:30 in the morning in a dirty shed in the middle of winter. Rain was leaking through the roof. And I understand how difficult it is to be a gym owner and to run a gym and to have those members. And these salespeople, they rock up 5 minutes before the fucking phone call and have the ability to make tens of thousands of dollars per month. And
It's incredible.
Man, it's incredible. And I think like, I don't think I was a talented salesperson at 4%. I was just like, what is this amazing opportunity I've been given? Like, I couldn't believe it. And I think that translated to me wanting to get better.
Absolutely. I think they take it for granted. And I kind of feel like this high ticket and remote sales space has done a little bit of a disservice to the industry. And we have a very entitled generation that kind of demands a little too much based on the realities of what it takes to generate cash and sales and whatever else. Because on the flip side of that, you have business owners that are burnt out, that are stressed, that are stretched to the absolute limit. And in some cases, we know this for a fact, right? Earning less than the sales agents. And if you ask me, that's a fucking crime. Right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's back to the expectations. What we try and do is I tell them about how many zaps it takes to get someone from a Facebook lead form to their calendar. I tell them the amount of outbound that's done. Like I think for me, like this year, I just try and be as completely transparent with my team as possible. Like, hey, we've got 6 VAs, and like if you fucking disrespect them, you're gone. Like, because your calendar would not be full if that VA didn't build high level, if the VA didn't build the ads, if the VA didn't map the lead form in high level, didn't set up that. There's so much goes into it for you to wake up a minute before you start. Hi, it's Jayme. It's crazy.
It's just, and look, and that's why on the flip side of that, you do have really good people that put a lot of effort in, are highly skilled, highly ethical. We'll also do outbound. We'll manage their pipeline, who will re-engage people, who bring a lot of good to the table and good energy, positive energy. They jump on to help their colleagues and peers, and that's the environment that I try to nurture in my team more than anything. And a team really is bigger than the individual, right?
Yeah. And I think just all the cogs in the wheel, like everything comes down to that calendar booking, and it all leads to you having the respect for the money spent on ads, giving you the opportunity to make that 10, 20K a month.
Yeah, look, because it isn't easy.
No.
And it's constantly changing. And for an offer to really work, I know what it takes to get an offer to work. Hence why I have extreme respect for anyone that's led from the front and being able to make it work, because those that make it work are far and few in between, right?
Yeah.
And there's wantpreneurs and there's actually entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Wantpreneurs keep talking about what they want to do, and at the first sign of resistance and challenge and a lack of progress are giving up, and they keep wanting. And then you've got your true entrepreneurs that, despite all the resistance, make it work.
I love Matt Ryder's stuff, and he says that sales isn't hard. Obviously, there is skill and there is work ethic required, but it's not fucking hard. My wife works at Newcastle Courthouse.
Yeah.
She is seeing the worst of humanity on a daily basis. My uncle did this to me. Like, seriously, like she's in court. She's hearing this shit every day. Yeah. Mitch's partner, Kate, she is a social worker at the hospital. A child dies. She is then consoling the parents. So we live in this internet world. What we do isn't even hard compared to the people that make this world go round. And that perspective of like, you are so fucking lucky to wake up with a cut. I drill it into my team like, you are lucky, you are lucky, you are lucky. Respect it.
Right. Couldn't agree more. That's hard.
Yeah. So, mate, you've improved your sales process, a hiring process. Sales management. How do you manage a high-performing sales team? And what are you looking for?
Character.
Character.
The challenge for entrepreneurs, let's say like us, that have an offer, is we wear so many hats. Like you need to learn marketing, copywriting, you need to learn about sales, and then funnels, and then everything else in between. And so finding the time to effectively manage a sales team, particularly as it grows, like as yours is now, becomes harder and harder. And when you really think about it, I mean, that's a full-time job in itself, without all the other stuff that you have to do in your day-to-day and in your week, right? So it isn't something that can be done effectively when you're wearing 50 different hats. And that's always been my challenge. My challenge is, as the business grew, I was still wearing too many hats. So now I've been able to replace me in many different areas. There's still a couple to go as we're setting up for world domination. But like managing a sales team effectively, as I've learned, requires your full attention. And it is a full-time job. So yes, I would openly say, with hand on heart, that I haven't really done it as well as I would like to over the years, but understand now more than ever, and we'll continue to learn what is needed. What is needed? I mean, it's more than just identifying talent. It's then nurturing that talent, giving people confidence. People are human. Sales agents are human. They have good days. They have bad days. They have days where there's stuff going on in their world. So it's also being human and being able to sometimes understand that, give people room, prop them up, give them confidence.
Yeah.
And lead them through those difficult moments in their own personal life, right? Aside from that, without losing sight of the most important thing, which is, in fact, the company.
Yeah.
So I read a book, a really good book called Winning, by a guy that was one of the head guys at GE Money back in, like, not GE Money, GE back in the day. I believe his name is Jack Welch or something. Winning has a lot of really good nuggets in it, really, really good nuggets on sales teams and leadership and all those kinds of things. One of the things I took away from that book, which I'm happy to share, is kind of like my management creed, my manager's creed, like sort of what you can expect from me. And it's in a particular channel in our company Slack. And that goes to the core, like that message, when they read it, it goes to the core of what they can expect. And just to summarize a little bit, it's every one of you are important. You're all human. You're all important. And often I will have to make decisions that are in your best interest. But my main focus is to do what is in the best interest of the company. That is my responsibility. That is my manager's creed. Now, often doing the right thing for you will mean doing the right thing for the company.
And whether you think it's the right thing or not.
But sometimes you won't like it.
So you set the expectation from day one. I care about you. I respect you, but the company must win.
It's the manager's creed. Yeah, and I took it from that book, and obviously you adapt it to you, to your personality, and to sort of what you want to convey to your team. And working with salespeople, they're if you get the right team, it can be the most enjoyable environment.
Yeah.
And if you all beat to the same drum, that thing in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is so fucking fun, right?
Yeah, and we have our own version of Boom City.
Yeah.
And when people post sales in there, everyone's celebrating, everyone's happy, and everyone's winning, including the most important thing for, I guess, my manager's creed would be the gym owners must win, and respect the leads you're getting.
Yeah, 100%. And so in terms of managing leadership, I think leading from the front, people need to see authentically that you know what you're talking about. You have to know sales. I mean, the biggest mistake that any entrepreneur will make is that they'll launch a business, launch an offer, and then outsource the sales immediately without understanding the sales. I mean, Hormozi talks about being a jack of all and a master of none. I couldn't agree more. You have to know every aspect of your business to the finest detail.
Well, if you don't know marketing, you're going to get fucked by an agency.
100%. You need to be able to assess work. I mean, how can you build a sales team if You don't understand sales.
Yeah. I made a huge mistake at the start of the year. We tried to outsource sales management and we tried to outsource onboarding. And I cannot see a time in the business where I am not the face of the
Never
business,
again.
not doing sales calls, bringing gyms into the service. And more importantly, Mitch is the person who does all of the onboarding, because there is so much nuance that we have being gym owners for 9 years that like you'd have to be a gym owner for 9 years.
Yeah.
We're not, and like, well, that person probably does exist, but then it goes back to, well, do they have good character?
Yeah.
Do they read the book in 7 days?
Yeah.
Well, like,
Yeah.
it really is difficult.
Yeah. So I think the leadership, as we said, the fish rots from the head. If you want people to have character, you must have character. If you want them to have integrity, you must have integrity. If you want them to be readers, then you have to read. If you want to be ultra high performers, then you bloody better be ultra high performer. A few months ago, there was a lot of change in our business for a short period of time, right? And guess what happened?
What happened?
I had to get back on the phone, didn't I?
Back on the phones, slaying sales.
And guess what happened?
Did you top closer?
You bet your ass I did.
That's good. I love that so much.
Why is that important? Because, your character gets tested. Your truth gets tested. All of a sudden, the guy that talks a big game, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 that's been putting heat on me. Let's see how good he is. What, do you think they're not thinking that? Of course they are. They're fucking human.
They would have been going through your calls with a fine-tooth comb, mate.
They're human, right? And so the most important thing is that when the going gets tough, right, the tough get going, can you get on the phone and can you deliver? So as an entrepreneur, it's so important to be able to show by example, to be able to lead by example.
The most basic sense, mate, is who wants to hire an overweight personal trainer?
No one. I remember when I was personal training back in the day, one of the key things that my clients were open about after a period of time was, well, mate, you walk the walk. You walk the walk, you're healthy,
Well, mate, we've got 5 minutes. I know you got a hard stop at 12. I'd love to ask you one final question that isn't easy to answer, but you invested a lot of money into the Inner Circle, ClickFunnels, Russell Brunson. What has that community been like for you? What have you given the community, and what have you gotten out of it?
It isn't what I expected. And in fact, as I have learnt to work through that community, I've realized that it offers the most important thing.
And that is?
The law of proximity. So, you don't go into a community where there's 7, 8 figure, maybe even more, I'm talking like legit, I think there's maybe some 9 figure people in there, right? Like crazy. And when we talk Inner Circle, you're mingling with Atlas. Atlas is your Jeremy Miners, your different people, right? Because the middle level now has been done away with, the category kings. Yeah. So what I realized is you're going into that community and it's not to consume videos. You know how you join a coaching program, a community, and then, here's your onboarding video, and then here's your how to build a funnel. No. It's none of that shit, right? Because the theory is you should know all that stuff. So
you can't be in that room without knowing that stuff.
You should know that stuff, right? You're not there for that. What you're there for is to connect with people, with business owners, with entrepreneurs that are changing the game. Now, those that flourish in a community like that are those individuals that are good with people, that are selfless, that are constantly willing to share, teach, and add value into an environment. When there's a live event, they're the first person walking up to someone. I haven't met you yet. My name is so-and-so, handshaking. Americans are excellent at that. So when I started to see what it was about, I realized I'm going to change my game. Because I'm not in here to learn. I'm in here to give.
Yeah. So, and you're not in there to show your expertise straight away. It is to connect.
Build relationships, see how you can add value, understand what they're doing, like get to know them, like how can I help, how can I serve, like you and I are talking now, like I'd be saying, like, is there anything I can help you with, like Jayme, like what I'm really struggling with hiring, let's jump on a Zoom, show me what you're doing, let me help that map you out. And then it might be connecting the dots, it might be like, hey, you need to meet this guy over here, connecting me with that person. So the Inner Circle has been about exactly that, about being in the inner circle. And getting outside of I mean, in Australia, I think we really struggle with helping people excel. We have this tall poppy syndrome. It's ugly. It's
100%.
really fucking ugly.
Yeah.
It is actually repulsive, right? Like and this is a generalized statement, because there are amazing people that I've connected with in Australia. There's amazing individuals in the entrepreneurial space.
There's just not that many. There's just not that many of them either. It's a small world,
right? And so we think differently. They think very big picture. So it's been very refreshing for me and very game changing to be in an environment where they just think so big, and the relationships that they're establishing have true value, right? Like they really invest into each other.
Mate, last thing, we got 1 minute. If you're an aspiring sales rep and you want to land on a high ticket offer, what is the number one piece of advice you'd give someone?
Number one piece of advice. Jeez, that's a hard one. That's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
One piece of advice. Well, I would say this: it's all about your character. It's all about your character.
No one wants to work with
your character. Underpins your actions, right? Your actions determine your character, right? Your thoughts determine your thoughts, like what you meditate on, what you focus on, what you obsess over becomes sort of what you then become, and then what you in terms of actions, and your actions determine your life, right?
Yeah.
So it's your character. Like it's what you do with your time, money, and energy. I said this to an agent yesterday, one of mine, and I'll say it here. If you want to know what someone truly values, follow the money, follow the time, follow the energy. In other words, where do they invest their time, money, and energy? That's what I want to know. Yeah. If I interview someone, for example, there's one thing that you're like, I want to be a high ticket closer. I want to earn $30,000 or $40,000 a year. Really? Show me where you invest your time. Show me how you invest your energy, and show me where you invest your money.
It's not about objection handling, mate. It's who you are. It's who you are as a human being.
Character.
Well, mate, thank you so much. Relentless entrepreneur, mate. I know you have limited capacity, but if someone wants to connect with you and talk more about sales, how do they contact you?
So if you jump on my Instagram, becoming Shane Da Costa, I think it's becoming_Shane Da Costa. There's a link there. You can subscribe to my daily email. Just DM me too. Just say g'day. It'd be good to know whoever it is that's aspiring, that wants to be in the high ticket space, or an entrepreneur or something like that. Maybe just have a chat. I ain't going to bite. So the Relentless Entrepreneur is something that I'm slowly sort of building in the background as well. I've got a couple of the businesses that I'm working on as well. And, I'm going to be in time helping entrepreneurs, like us, build high-performing sales teams. And that's going to be my jam. So I'm not interested in helping high-ticket aspiring people learn how to sell. I'm going to be I'm going to go into the next level. I'm going to help entrepreneurs improve their sales teams.
It sounds good, mate. And more importantly, you've walked the walk, which for me is the most important element of hiring any mentor ever.
So have you, my friend. And I think if your listeners don't know and don't acknowledge your greatness yet, mate, they will.
Mate, I still think I'm pretty stupid, to be honest. I learn.
That's the sign of greatness.
Yeah.
That's the sign of greatness.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, mate. Well, mate, have a lovely, lovely day. Thank you so much for coming on. All right. Bye. We're off, mate.